Hello and welcome back to a new art video. This video is the first video I've ever did about my art. I'm still working on this big video that is coming out soon. So while we're still waiting on this one, I wanted to share my first art video. So please enjoy. Hello! So today it's going to be a slightly different format than usual because I'm going to draw my dream room. As you might have seen in my other video, I recently moved, which means that I have a full room for me to decorate. There's a little bit of an issue though. I have absolutely no idea what I like in terms of interior design. The art that I draw is very cyberpunk, futuristic, and dark. But the clothes I wear are very buttercup cottagecore. They cannot be more different from one another. I thought about it for a little while and wonder how can I mix cottagecore and cyberpunk. I mean, there's not a lot of suspense, you read the title, it's solarpunk. What is solarpunk, you may ask? Well, my friends, you are on the right video. Let me explain. According to the 3-minute research I did on the interweb, solarpunk is the antithesis of cyberpunk. Cyberpunk takes place in a very gloomy and dark dystopian future, whereas solarpunk takes place in a more bright and optimistic future. Climate change is not an issue anymore because thanks to technology, we learn to live in a more environmental way. And that is how I'm going to put a sprinkle of cottagecore in the project. Okay, let's get into it. The first things that I do when I want to draw a background is to look at, well, other people's background. So, to the interweb! First, I looked at some solarpunk imageries. By doing that, I could already see some similarities from all those different pictures. Then I moved on to cyberpunk. And I stayed a long time on it because, again, I love this art style. And slight flex, my teacher's friend is the guy that invented cyberpunk. Apparently. You know, it's those kind of flex that you will never use, well, anywhere else than here. So here we go. After cyberpunk, I went to something a little bit more special. I grew up in Switzerland. And over there, there's a museum called La Maison d'Ailleurs. And when I was a teeny tiny child, my dad took me to many exhibitions they had over there. And one of these expositions was, I am not going to pronounce that in English because I have no idea how to do that, but it was called l'archiborescence. And I think this experience stuck with me throughout my entire life. You can still see a lot of inspiration from that exposition in my art currently. What is archiborescence? Very good question, my friend. Archiborescence is the exposition made by an architect called... how am I going to pronounce that? Let me check real quick.
Schuiten.
Luc Schuiten. I am still not convinced by this pronunciation. In 2006 and 2007, he had an exposition at La Maison d'Ailleurs where a teeny tiny me had her mind blown. A lot of solarpunk aesthetic. I don't know if it's already like too old to be called solarpunk, because I know that solarpunk is rather new, but here it is. I didn't do a deep dive into the research, but if you're interested, there are much more on the interweb, so I would highly recommend you to do some research on it. Okay, that's pretty much what I did for the inspiration pics. For the mood boards, I did two different ones. The first one was pretty much a vomit of pictures. I slapped all the pictures that I downloaded into my canvas, but I kept my three main categories: Luke Schwitten, Cyberpunk, and Solarpunk. Out of those three categories, I picked the main color I could see. This is when I realized that Luke Schwitten's palette color is just a pastel version of the Solarpunk category. Out of this messy mood board, I started to outline the main shape I could see. The three categories had a lot of circles. The Cyberpunk category added that weird, wiggly, angular shape. Once I was done with my messy first mood board, I started on my more refined second mood board. I took all my favorite pictures, it was very difficult to choose, and rearranged them in the new canvas. Then it was time to choose the color palette for the room. You're gonna see it very quickly, but my favorite colors is turquoise or a mint green. This is when I realized how important it is to go through all those different steps, because entering into this project, I was pretty sure that my color palette would be emerald, turquoise, and lavender. But after going through all this process, I chose the color palette with the color called, more commonly, Bastard Ember. Okay, now that I had my mood board, I could move on to the next step. The next step is a bit confusing. Remember the picture I showed you at the beginning? To have a rough idea of how it would look like in real life, I started to draw on those pictures. But it didn't really work out for me. Using this technique, it was difficult to figure out where to place the different furnitures. Instead, I started drawing plans. This way, it was much easier to know where to place what. It's also when I realized that I had to compromise. I couldn't have my circle bed or my couch, but I managed to place a bean chair. But once the plans were ready, it was time to start drawing in the final room. First of all, I wanted to say that I didn't draw the entire room. Why? Because the bed area isn't listing. It is just a bed behind a curtain. I also wanted to point out that the perspectives are not the best. At this point, I had already a pretty good idea of where all the furnitures would go, so I started to draw the main furnitures that I wanted in. My main issue in this project was to be able to mix reality and fiction. What I mean by that is that I got constantly stuck thinking, oh wait, I don't have enough space for this, so I cannot add that. Or, oh, this is just not doable in reality. Of course, I would love to have a flying couch, but I guess we still haven't invented those. But at this point is when I realize, just let your mind go. Draw something that is not possible to be made, and then I'll deal with it later. This is how I got my best ideas. For example, instead of having a regular piano stance, I put it on vivariums, bringing back this idea of solarpunk. If we jump forward and we look at the desk that I made, I have no idea if it's possible to make such a desk, probably, but you're not gonna find it at IKEA. I had this idea of a vegetal wall. It is realistic, but let's be honest, it's probably pretty complicated for me to build that. But anyway, I'm gonna deal with it later. And look, the beanbag chair is back. I wanted a cozy corner where I could watch or play piano and relax. Don't look at those drawings of stuffed toy. Those are stuffed toy that I do have, but yeah, they don't really look like that. Okay, I think we're pretty much ready for the final result. I added a few details here and there off camera. Before I show you the final result, please consider subscribing. That would be really fun. And also in the comments, please let me know if you like those kind of videos. I would love to do more like this. Okay, let's watch the final result.